Thanks, Sue. I know, from my point of view, and I'm sure some of the others who've been around in the animal rights movement for a few years, it's very easy to get cynical, especially about politicians and things like that. But Sue Keji's one of possibly the only politician since I've been involved in animal rights that's put a lot of effort into all the animal rights issues like factory farming and vivisection and stuff like that. Sue mentioned that the justification for animal research, there's no way of us knowing how justified it is. I'm going to talk for a little while about that. Most of you are probably aware, but I'll tell you anyway, that increasingly overseas anyway, a lot of doctors and scientists are arguing against vivisection, not just on ethical grounds, but on scientific grounds as well. What they're saying is that vivisection is not necessary for science, and in fact it is holding us back, because the differences between species mean that using animals for human research is, I'm having trouble with this microphone, is misleading and can be harmful to human health. So, you know, a lot of people think, well, maybe we need to do some animal research. You know, the vivisectors always say, oh, it's necessary, we're saving lives. That's not true. And if they're so sure that they're saving lives by torturing animals, they should be prepared to front up and justify it, and let independent scientists see what they're doing. At the moment, these ethics committees are made up of a panel of vivisectors who just approve their own experiments with no public input whatsoever, so we can't trust them at all. I'll give you a few examples. A couple of years ago, Auckland University, some researchers there decided to do a study into the effects of nicotine on pregnant mice. In their paper, they actually said they knew what happened with pregnant women in nicotine. Smoking is bad for you. If you're pregnant, it's bad for the baby. It's pretty bloody obvious. But these researchers weren't so sure, so they decided to test it on mice. And they found out that it's bad for baby mice as well. That cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that was approved by an ethics committee. An ethics committee that supposedly only lets through experiments that are absolutely necessary. That's what they tell us. That's Auckland University. Another guy at Auckland University, Simon Malpas, who's one of the major researchers at Auckland University and also sits on the Government National Animal Ethics Advisory Committee. He spent the last few years investigating blood pressure of rabbits. One experiment I found from him that was published last year, he drained 60% of a rabbit's blood out of its body in 20 minutes to see what would happen. Anyone know what would happen? It died. Amazing. The guy's a genius. Lots of taxpayers' money went into that. These are some of the sorts of experiments that are going on. In Otago, there are a couple of researchers who spent over 12 years drilling holes in guinea pigs' heads and implanting things in their brains to see what would happen. They've published 88 papers in those 12 years. I've got a stack of them in the office. Not one of them has come up with a useful result. That's the kind of thing that is being funded. When we dig into it and find out what sort of experiments are happening around the country, we find out stuff like that. And that's why we don't trust them. You know, the few examples that come out turn out to be absolute rubbish. Really shonky science, no use at all. But it's getting cold, so I'm going to finish soon. But I'm going to tell you about what's been happening overseas. You've noticed that the vivisectors have run away here. Overseas in the last few months, the anti-vivisection movement has taken off in a whole lot of different countries, and there's been a lot of victories. And these vivisectors in New Zealand, they know that we're in touch with what's happening overseas, and they know that it's going to come here too. I'll just tell you about a few things. In Oxford University in England, they've been trying to build a new primate lab to do brain experiments on monkeys. Protests against that have been huge. So much so that the building contractors have pulled out of the contract and are refusing to build the lab. Last year, all the building contractors in England put out a statement saying they are not going to take part in the building of any vivisection labs in England anymore because it's just not worth the bother. They don't want the protests, they don't want the hassle. Okay, so that lab is half built in Oxford. It's been sitting there for 8 months now with no work being done on it because of public pressure. Some of you might have heard of the biggest contract animal testing lab in the world. It's called Huntington Life Sciences. They've been under siege for 5 years from protesters all over the world. They were caught on film by an undercover investigator, people punching puppies in the head inside their lab. Since then there's been protests all over the world. They can't get any business anywhere. They can't even get a cheque account. We're talking about a multinational company with 1,000 employees in England. They can't get a cheque account because the banks don't want to touch them. Because any bank that touches them, there's a boycott campaign and the bank loses money. In the US just a month ago, a guy decided to build a breeding centre for primates and import primates from China and sell them to labs all over America. The neighbours kicked up a big stink, lots of publicity. It took 2 months and he announced he wasn't going to do it anymore. That thing's been cancelled. So that one primate importing business in America went out of business last month because of public pressure. In Holland there was plans to build another vivisection breeding centre in Holland. Public pressure again, before they even got started, it was shut down by opposition. And in Spain, right now they've just started building a huge primate breeding centre where they're importing monkeys from Africa to distribute to labs all over England and Europe. Just, I think, 3 weeks ago it was announced that the council refused planning permission because they didn't want the pressure and all the neighbours were against it and things like that. So we are winning, and the vivisectors know we're winning. And they know that that kind of stuff is going to start happening here as well, because our tiny little movement here is getting bigger and bigger, and even though there's not many of us here today, we've got public support and they haven't. That's why they're hiding, okay? So we are winning. Even though we can't find the vivisectors today, we are winning and they're in hiding, and we're going to keep winning. And it's really amazing that they're hiding, actually. I'm really pleased. I'm a bit disappointed that I can't go down and shout at them, but we've got 3 days and we will find them. Thanks for coming.